This is the Tecno Pova Neo disassembly. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe and follow me on Twitter so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. And if you need any tools, there are links in the description. To start off, the SIM tray needs to be removed. Next, we need to place the pry tool in between the back housing and the frame of the screen, and then run along the edges to pop off the catches. Once the back housing is free from the frame, there's some adhesive around the fingerprint sensor, so we're going to have to pry that off gently. So the back housing is made of plastic. The camera lens covers can be replaced by applying heat and prying them off. On the other side, there's antenna flex cables on the top and bottom, and there's some graphite film to help transfer heat. There's some protective film on the top and bottom that needs to be peeled off. Once those are peeled off, there are 18 Phillips screws that need to be removed. Now the top plastic cover can be lifted up and removed. Here's a better look at that. On the back side, we can see the flex cable and connector for the fingerprint reader. So when this plastic piece is pressed down, the connector for the fingerprint reader will connect with the connector on the main board. Now that we have access to the battery cable, we're going to disconnect that first. And then we can proceed to disconnect the rest of the cables. There are 2 Phillips screws on the main board which are holding it down that need to be removed. Now the main board can be lifted up, but be careful since there's a coaxial cable connected underneath. The coaxial cable can be disconnected by just popping it off. Taking a better look at the main board, there's a 13 megapixel primary camera and a 2 megapixel depth or AI lens. None of the cameras have OIS or optical image stabilization. Also, the camera connectors can be disconnected by just popping them off. The quad LED flash is located here, and there's a liquid damage indicator which is the white sticker on the bottom corner. There's also graphite film over the shields, and the rubber gasket around this connector. The SIM card and memory card reader is located on the back, and the dual front-facing flash is located on top. The same goes for the proximity sensor and the 8 megapixel front-facing camera. And finally, there's some thermal paste on the back shield. Once that removable shield is removed, we can see more thermal paste underneath on top of this chip. Here's a better look at it with the thermal paste removed. Now the speaker assembly can be lifted up and removed. Here's a better look at that. The other end of the coaxial cable, as well as the flex cable on the bottom right, needs to be disconnected from the subboard. There's a single Phillips screw which is holding down the subboard that needs to be removed, and there's some adhesive underneath the vibrator motor, so the motor needs to be gently pried off since the cables are soldered to the subboard. There's a rubber gasket around the charger port and headphone jack, as well as one around this connector. The primary microphone is located in between, and there's another liquid damage indicator sticker which is that white sticker. Here's a look at the other side. In order to remove the battery, there's a pull tab on the bottom left corner to help us pry the battery off. The adhesive pull tab isn't the most helpful, so I'm going to apply some isopropyl alcohol around the sides of the battery and let it sit for about 30 seconds, so it'll make it easier for me to pry the battery off. Here's a better look at the 6000 mAh battery. Once the battery is removed, we can see the flex cable for the screen, which is routed through an opening in the midframe. So if you needed to replace the screen, you'd need to remove the back housing, as well as the screws on the top plastic cover and the speaker assembly, and remove those. Disconnect the battery cable and pry the battery off, and disconnect this flex cable from the main board, as well as the other end from the subboard. You'd also need to remove the subboard itself, heat up the front of the phone where the screen is to loosen up the adhesive underneath, pry the old screen off, apply new adhesive, and reapply the new screen, making sure to run both of these flex cables back through the openings in the midframe, and reassemble the phone. Moving on, the flex cable for the volume keys and power button is located on the side and is held down with some adhesive, and the earpiece speaker is located on top, and that's also held down with some adhesive. For the repairability score on this phone, I give it a 2.5 out of 10. Now it's time to put the phone back together. Once everything's back in place, flip over the phone, power it on, and you're done. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.